I'd like to welcome you all tonight to the webinar where we're going to discuss the professional development opportunities offered to you by the Department of Educational Studies at Macquarie University. So in this session you're going to learn about how Macquarie can help you to become a teacher, a more highly accomplished teacher, and an educational leader in schools. So my name is Greg Robertson from the Department of Education Studies, and this is Norman McCullough, who will talk to you about becoming a teacher.
Good evening, everybody. If you're interested in becoming a teacher, it usually means you have an undergraduate degree. And if you have an undergraduate degree, the first question you need to ask is whether that degree satisfies the base requirements for the area you're thinking of teaching, whether it's in primary schools or whether it's part of a secondary school program, like an English teacher or a maths teacher or whatever. The place you go to have that considered is the New South Wales Board of Studies Teaching and Educational Standards, BOSTES. Easy to find on the website, just put it into as BOSTES. And if you go into there, you will find a little section called Teaching New South Wales. And in that section, it outlines what you need as a base requirement in your undergraduate degree to satisfy the teaching requirements in New South Wales. If you satisfy them in New South Wales, you're then eligible to teach right across Australia and in many parts of the world. But the first step there is to look at whether you've got the appropriate content for the degree. Then at Macquarie, we can work with you to develop your teaching qualifications. A number of people will come and say, I've got qualifications in mathematics, can I be a teacher? To be a teacher, you need to do substantial study in education. Education is a discipline in its own right, student learning, how schools work, what it is to teach and be a teacher. You also need to develop your methodologies, and that's how to plan lessons, how to assess student progress, and you need to be engaged in a number of days' professional experience in schools. And that's what you do in the Bachelor of Education at Macquarie. It's a postgraduate qualification for those who already have an undergraduate degree and want to take the next step and become a teacher. So it's the Bachelor of Education. First step, check with the BOSTES website whether you meet those earlier requirements. And then if you do, or you need some additional work, come and talk to us about then entering the Bachelor of Education program. Great.
Okay, that deals with becoming a teacher. Now we're going to be talking about becoming a more highly accomplished teacher, and we do that at Macquarie through the Master of Education. The Master of Education has two specialisations, the Advanced Practices in Teaching and Learning and Leading Teaching and Learning. Now both of these specialisations are aligned with the AITSL standards, the professional standards for teachers. So I'll just talk a little bit about that so to make clear what the difference between the two specialisations is. Here's an example from the AITSL standards that deals with one of the standards, knowing the content and how to teach it. There are 4 levels: graduate, proficient, highly accomplished and lead. The standard for graduate means when a student graduates from an initial teacher education program, they know how to teach. After a certain amount of time, the new program teachers need to move on and be registered at a proficient level, which means they can teach well. The New South Wales Department of Education are now trying to encourage teachers to register at higher levels. Highly accomplished teacher is not only one who can teach well, but can, by example, help others to improve their teaching. A lead teacher is slightly different. They're an excellent teacher, so they fulfil all the requirements of the highly accomplished teacher, but they also take responsibility for programs for school improvement. So a highly accomplished teacher teaches well, they're an excellent teacher, and can use that knowledge to improve others' teaching, and a lead teacher is responsible for improving the quality of educational programs in the school by taking the lead for certain innovations. So I'll move on to the advanced practices in learning and teaching. This is aligned with the AITSL standards for highly accomplished teaching. So through this program, you're going to be learning to enhance the quality of your teaching and your students' learning. You become a more highly accomplished leader. And you're going to do that by better understanding students' motivation and how to engage them better in learning. You're going to learn to create effective opportunities by applying advanced pedagogical practices. You'll understand better how to enhance student learning through the use of advanced assessment techniques, using ICT to develop students' critical thinking, creative thinking and problem solving and collaboration skills. And you'll learn how better to support your colleagues to enhance their levels of proficiency. So this qualification essentially enables you to improve the quality of your learning and teaching and to serve as an example for others around you. The next specialisation is leading learning and teaching. Now that's aligned with the 8 SOR standards for lead teaching. Through this qualification, you're going to broaden your sphere of influence. You're not only going to be learning to improve the learning and teaching of those immediately around you, but you're going to be taking responsibility for improving learning across the whole school context. You'll learn how to lead the development and implementation of programs to enhance student learning in a variety of different ways. You're going to learn to evaluate educational programs in order to demonstrate that they have been effective. And you're going to learn to understand how teachers learn in order for them to become more highly accomplished. So you're going to be able to bring other teachers along with you by understanding the principles of professional learning. So the Master of Education has the 2 specialisations, Advanced Practices in Teaching and Learning, which is aligned with the highly accomplished level of the 8 SOR standards, and the leading teaching and learning, which is aligned with the lead teaching standards. Now, we're going to now talk about, just give you a moment to read what one of our alumni has said about her experience at Macquarie. I was keen to ensure my teaching strategies remain current and engage my students while continuing developing my own professional practice and overall understanding of education. This program, the Master of Education at Macquarie, offered me that opportunity. Working with lecturers who have been amazingly open, supportive, consultative and knowledgeable about the issues facing our field was also a highlight. So that's Kate's experience of her studies in the Master of Education. We'll now move on to the transition from teaching to more leadership roles within schools, and Norman will talk about the Master of Education Leadership and its specialisation.
Thanks, Greg. What we try to do at Macquarie is to have a philosophy that people in all stages of their career are leaders. So the kind of program Greg was talking about encourage leadership development in early career and particularly as you move to taking more responsibilities in the school or the early childhood centre that you're working in. When you get then into having tried out some leadership roles, a number of people then decide that they want to apply for more formal positions of leadership, whether it be as assistant principals, deputy principals, heads of department, and of course school principals. So they then consider enrolling in the Master of Educational Leadership. The Master of Educational Leadership really does develop the kind of leader attributes that you need to run schools in today's world. So we do a lot of work in areas like leadership for learning. We look at schools as organisations. We look at the nature of curriculum. We look at leading the entirety of teacher professional development within the school. We run change projects. And we really sharpen people's capacity to do research and ideally to contribute into the profession. We have 2 specialisations in the Master of Educational Leadership degree. One of them is specifically geared to formal leadership roles in school education. The other is geared to leadership in early childhood contexts. The structure of those degrees allow you to do some core units, but also allow you degrees of freedom to choose areas of study that are just right for your particular needs. And in the university's website, it explains to you very clearly the structure of the degree coming into 2017. A number of our alumni have moved on to leadership positions. That's not our alumni we've just put on the screen there, but it's part of our leadership program. We like to think internationally. A lot of our staff are doing some prominent work internationally, and we have some good international links. That's a photograph was taken not long ago, actually, about 6 to 8 weeks ago, at a masterclass series we run. And the people you can see there from the left and right are people from well-known researchers from Canada and the United Kingdom. From the right-hand side is our colleague, Dr. John DeNoble. We have Linda Kayser from Canada, Professor Alma Harris, who's extremely well known in the UK, Dr. Michelle Jones from the UK, and Judy Halbert from Ontario, Canada. And they're part of a masterclass professional development series that we run that also this year has included Dean Fink from Canada. So we have a number of very good international people that we work with, as well as the people coming into the units that are very much resources in their own right, because they have very rich experiences within schools across Australia and from overseas. And we run our seminars in all our master's programs very much as learning communities, where we learn from each other. So the expertise within that entire group is very, very important, and not just the expertise that you might have coming through university staff. A quote there from, you may know Jan Robinson. Jan is principal at St Luke's DY, and she's one of our alumni. We have, as I said, a number of people who've gone on to prominent leadership roles in schools and outside of schools. And her quote there, I think you can read at your leisure, but it's really saying one of the highlights, as I just said, is the fact that you can actually work with colleagues who are thinking about leading schools and learn from each other and learn from staff here and undertaking the program. So that's the Master of Educational Leadership in School Education and Early Childhood, Greg.
So I just want to talk a little bit now about the nature and structure of the degrees. If you read on the website, you'll see that degrees are listed as 48 credit points, 1 year full-time equivalent. Now that's the full degree, but if you're a teacher with 3 or more years full-time equivalent work experience, you can apply for recognition of prior learning and you'll receive 16 credit points in recognition of that learning. That means the degree, instead of being 18 months full-time or notionally 3 years part-time, it becomes 1 year full-time or 2 years part-time. Now that's a considerable saving in terms of time and also cost of the degree. Now it's not always easy to find the information on the university's website about recognition of prior learning. It seems to be buried quite deeply. I find it difficult sometimes. So the thing to remember is that when you read the information about these two programs, the Master of Education and the Master of Educational Leadership, if you're a teacher with 3 years full-time work experience, it's a 1 year full-time, but notionally what most people do is 2 years part-time. That's 2 units for each of 4 semesters. Now we do have summer sessions, so you can accelerate your program somewhat by studying over the summer vacation. I think it's probably worthwhile having a vacation after a year of teaching, but if you really want to, there is an opportunity for you to engage in these things. Now the structure of the degrees are such that there are some core studies relevant to your specialisation, but there's also some units that sit above. There's a unit on research methodology, which I take. There's a capstone unit on education, innovation and change. And there's also a unit called current topics. Now, current topics is another type of capstone unit where you take all of the content knowledge that you develop in your specialisation and you take also consideration of what's involved in bringing about change in educational organisations and research methodologies to come up with a program of innovation for your school, something that you want to change. So we've had things to do with assessment, we've had things to do with professional professional learning. We've had broad-scale change at institutional levels in different countries. Now, the notion is that you draw on all the knowledge you've learned and you apply it to a change program that you could take to your headmaster or some person in authority in your educational context and say, this is how we can change learning and teaching in our school. We can improve the quality of learning and teaching for our students by following this plan. Now, it could be in any area that takes your interest. But the purpose of this is as a capstone to draw together both the knowledge that you've acquired in the specialisation and also knowledge of change and innovation and knowledge of educational research methodology so that you can demonstrate that this program of innovation has had an impact on student learning. So one of the notions behind Macquarie's degrees is not only do you learn these things, but you'll learn to apply them in a way that will improve the quality of learning and teaching in the school. And once you've done it once, you can do it again and again. Now, these are the things that are going to improve your professional standing within the school. They're going to lead to your promotion. So both of the degrees, the Master of Education and the Master of Education Leadership, both have these opportunities. They're focused on not only the content knowledge, but applying them in ways which are going to improve the learning and teaching in your school. Norman, do you have any other reflections?
No, that's true, Greg. And in a number of the units themselves, what we always encourage is some scope for people to actually apply the learning of the unit to a specific professional interest that they have. It might be a school-based project, or it may well be something that's broader than that. It might be something to do with the broad trends in Australian education or whatever. So there is degrees of freedom and flexibility to address genuine workplace needs within that broad international literature and understandings that we develop. So we have this little motto of thinking internationally, but acting locally. And that local might be school, might be state, it might be national.
Well, I always try and encourage, when I speak to the students at the beginning of their studies with us, I say, have an idea about how you want to improve learning and teaching in your school and take advantage of every opportunity within the unit, every opportunity, the flexibility offered in the assessment or in the areas of study, and turn it into your favour. Now, you may well change what you believe is important as a consequence of your study. So you need to be somewhat flexible, but start off with a plan. Don't just think, I'm going to be doing a degree. Be doing a degree in order to bring about change. And how you understand change and how you understand what needs to be done will be influenced by what you're learning. But essentially use this as an opportunity to develop your skills, to bring about improvements in your context.
What we'll often do, and we encourage people to do, if you come and join us to study, as you do, contact either Greg or myself, because we'll have a chat to you. And the first question will say, what do you want this degree to do for you? Where do you see yourself going? Where's it heading? What are your interests? And we can give you some, what we call academic advice on how you might work your way through a study pattern that will really satisfy the needs that you have for further study. And that's all part of the service. We're more than happy to do that.
So now we'll be taking questions. If you'd like to type your questions, and we'll address them via this webinar. So in terms of the current topics, that capstone unit, I've had a few people lately, they're just in their final throes of bringing together their projects. And I had one student email me to say that he has just submitted his project to his principal. The principal has decided to implement that next year, and he's been given a little budget to bring about. Now, it focused on student learning. It focused on improving the approach to assessment taken in the school, and they was based around collegial approaches to learning, and it seemed to be a really important innovation for that school. And I think that, that potentially this is going to improve this students'
Absolutely.
learning.
So see if we can pick up Lauren's question. Is it possible to work full-time and study the MEd part-time? What are the hours like for the degree? Most people do, Lauren. The vast majority of our students are all working full-time. They do as many units as they think they can afford to do within their time limits. Some, as Greg said, will do 2 units a semester. Some might just do 1 unit a semester. But I think here we have to remember 2 things. One, the vast majority of our units are online. So you can do them at the time and place of your choosing, with degrees of interaction with students on the website. A number of the units will offer voluntary sessions. So you can come, we've got one this Saturday, for instance, from 10:30 to 2:30 in one of the units. Purely voluntary for those people who want to come and meet face-to-face with some of the people in the unit. Other units will offer evening as well as external online components, with the evening students also having access to online. So it really depends on how engaged you want to be on campus. If you don't want to be engaged on campus, you can do the degree quite adequately online. Having done degrees in very full professional roles in schools and educational workplaces, I know full well the pressures, as Greg does, that people work under. So the online component saves you all that time in traffic. You still can come to university and work with people if you choose to do so. Great options. And of course the library is brilliant. At the click of a mouse you have access to the world's literature through the journals and whatever. You can find a very remote journal article, 1986 or something, an obscure journal. You can find it within 3 clicks of the mouse once you're enrolled.
Well, I actually borrowed a book the other day. I haven't borrowed a book in such a long time because much of the material is online. So flexibility is the key to studying at Macquarie. You can enrol as a full-time student, you can enrol as a part-time student, you can enrol as an internal student, you can enrol as an external student. That's for your degree. For the units, you can enrol as an online student, or you can enrol as an evening or weekend student. There are different types of patterns of enrolment for different units. But essentially, you choose what you need to fulfill the requirements of the unit. If you want to come, come. If you don't want to come, you don't have to come. So we have people studying internationally. They have no opportunity to attend class at all. They live in a variety of countries. And they find it great, the pattern of interaction that they can have with students. They can actually get online and discuss in a variety of media issues that they're being set in the class. So it's entirely up to you.
Let's have a look at another question then. Linda, I'm a student of Charles III University in Prague. I would like to ask if there is any course for postgraduate students, because I have been at... We can't get the rest of your question there.
This is... So, I'd like to ask if there are any courses for postgraduate students. So, Linda, we can't actually see the end of your question, but if you're an international student and you're overseas, as I've just said, there you can fulfil the requirements of both the Master of Education and the Master of Education Leadership entirely online and outside of Australia. You can come and you can go. Now, obviously, if you're not in Australia, you can't sit in the actual face-to-face classes, but that doesn't matter. The learning is of high quality whether you choose to do face-to-face or not. Many of our students don't come. Most of the students have only ever heard my voice, and they'll say, oh, that's what you look like, which is a bit of a shock sometimes for them, I suppose. So there's a second part to your question, Linda, that says you've studied a PhD. So,
yes, I'm not sure with your question there, Linda, whether it's you're inquiring, you've done studies in Prague, and you're asking whether that would qualify you to teach, or whether you get some credit for them. So we probably need to see the rest of the question there to follow that through. And by all means, telephone us. We can chat to you about that. Not a problem at all. Or send an email. We'll follow that up with you directly.
So again, I think that flexibility is one of the things that students appreciate. They can choose to do one way in one unit, another way in another unit, depending on the time of the year, the unit that they're studying, because students will talk about this is the best way to do this particular unit. But there's opportunities to engage with your peers in no matter which mode that you choose, face-to-face or online.
I think postgraduate study too is different. We say postgraduate studies is different to undergraduate study, is doing a doctorate is different to postgraduate study. And I think the joy of postgraduate study is that people with workplace experience have that rich basis on which to reflect. And because you've got that rich basis of observation, reflection, discussion, and education, I've been thinking more about this lately. Education is a profession where you tend to grow over periods of time. And some of our higher degree research students are very much near the end of their careers doing doctorates. And they've got this layer upon layer. It's like the side of a volcano, layer upon layer of experience that's been built up. And they're rich resources when you're working together collegially with colleagues. Rebecca, how does the Leading Education course aid you in achieving lead teacher accreditation?
There's no, by studying the Leading Teaching and Learning qualification, you don't automatically achieve lead teaching accreditation. But what it does do is it gives you the knowledge and skills required to achieve accreditation. So you'll learn how teachers learn and how to engage them in learning opportunities. You'll learn about innovation and change. So the sorts of things that you'll study will help you to do the tasks of a lead teacher, to evaluate programs, to develop programs. So there's no direct link. By studying this, you won't necessarily achieve accreditation. But what you will do is be able to develop a portfolio that demonstrates the skills and knowledge required of a lead teacher, and you'll be able to use that as evidence when you apply for a lead teaching role.
Some of the points Greg was making before, Rebecca too, at lead teacher level, it's expected that you're going to have some broader impact across the school and ideally across a number of schools. So to do that, you really need to be appraised of where things are at in an area that you're particularly interested in. So the degree structure allows you to develop those interests and also to have an informed position to be able to actually do the leadership that is required to be recognised at lead teacher status. So that allows you to establish evidence-based programs, it allows you to evaluate the programs, and it gives you the skills to actually lead the change programs. And they're the vital components of leadership at that level.
And I suppose that, like with educating kids, that education is not a passive thing. You don't just study here and have information poured down your throat. You need to be active. You need to be thinking about what it is you want to achieve. You have to learn, essentially explore the issue of what lead teaching is, and then use the program at Macquarie in order to develop the specific knowledge and skills that you require in your contexts. So the tasks we set, the assignments, the opportunities to interact, all provide you with a vehicle to develop your skills and knowledge as an individual, but also collectively. You'll be learning to work as a member of a team on many of these units. So all of these things you need to approach this in an active sense with a goal in mind, and we can help you develop those goals, those study goals. And notionally those goals should change over time as you learn more about the specific content areas. So we have a question from Sam.
If you have been a teacher for 8 years and I want to study the MEd, will I get recognition of prior learning?
So Sam, both of the Master of Education and the Master of Education and Leadership require 3 years full-time teaching equivalent, and you'll receive 16 credit points, or that's the equivalent of 6 months full-time, 1 year part-time, credit in recognition of prior learning. So all you need to do is to demonstrate that you have that experience, and that will be automatically granted. So I can talk about the ways that happens, but that's a little bit technical. But essentially, there'll be a chunk, 16 credit point chunk of study that you won't have to do, and essentially you'll have to do the required study for the specialisation that you choose. So in order to demonstrate that, a letter for, if you've been in one school for 8 years, you could have a letter from the boss saying, Sam has been a teacher in this school from this period to this period, and that will be sufficient. I'm the person that makes the judgments about recognition of prior learning, so it will come straight to me if required, if it's at all controversial. But that's all you need to do. You need to just simply a letter from the boss to demonstrate that you have that experience. You don't have to prove anything else. You don't need to go to any great difficulty. If you've got that learning spread, that experience spread across a couple of schools, then you can just demonstrate one, and in your CV you can demonstrate that you have other experience and give a few contact details. We need to be able to verify the information, so it's not too onerous. It's relatively straightforward, and if you have a special circumstance, you can just contact me, Greg Robertson at Macquarie University, and I can talk you through the process. So we have another question from Linda.
Right, my question was about research. Do you think it would be possible to come to university and cooperate with somebody in research area analysing the lessons of biology at the second grade of primary school, which is aimed at professional vision and reflection of teachers? During these researches, I am using video recording of lessons that I film. Please, do you know whom I should contact? Thank you, Linda. Thanks, Linda, for your question. It just depends there on whether you want to do that as part of a formal course of study, or whether you want somebody to work with and doing what you work you work in biology in year 2. Macquarie, you may not know, has an incredibly rich reputation in the area of the science and technology area. So we have staff here who would be delighted to know of your interest. The easiest way to do that is probably just to send either Greg or myself an email, and we'll forward it to people like Professor Joanne Mulligan, who's has an international reputation in this area, and always interested in making links with schools that have an interest in furthering children's understanding of science. So well done on your work there, and we'd be happy to make that link.
So if you're interested in studying at the PhD level, you want to do a doctorate, that's handled by our high degree research team. Norman and I are working specifically tonight on master's level units. You need certain qualifications in order to be accepted into a doctoral program at Macquarie. The pathway for domestic students is what we have here is a Masters of Research. It's a 2-year full-time qualification, and in that program you develop some understanding of the discipline of education in the first year, and then the second year you develop a research project. You conduct the research project and it's assessed, and on the basis of the marks you achieve in that master's course, you may be accepted into a doctoral program. So the pathway for domestic students is via our Masters of Research, or a master's degree with a substantial component, a substantial research component, but that would be assessed at the time of your application. We can't talk generally. So the pathway, if you're wanting to know a Masters of Research pathway into the PhD, or you may well go directly into a PhD. The Masters units that we do, essentially, if you've done a Master's of Education or a Master of Education Leadership, you can walk into the second year of the Masters of Research. So in other words, the Master of Education, for example, is a 1-year full-time course. And you'll walk into the second year of the Master of Research, which is a 1-year full-time course. And from that you can go into a PhD after 2 years of full-time study. Or you can walk into the Masters of Research and take 2 years to get into a PhD. So if you're interested in doing research, you can go straight into the MRes, which is going to take you 2 years to get a PhD, or you can come through the Masters of Education or the Masters of Education Leadership through the second year of the MRes and still be 2 years to get a PhD. So the Masters of Research is the pathway, but you can get to that through the Master of Education and the Master of Educational Leadership, should you be interested. So it doesn't take time for your journey, to take time away from your journey to a PhD to do these qualifications. It may well add to it if you're wanting to develop your understanding, because in the Master of Education or the Master of Educational Leadership, you can develop knowledge and skill that will support your research journey. So there's pros and cons both ways, and if you want to talk about that a bit more, you can send us a longer description about who you are, what you're wanting to do, and we can refer that to the relevant people. So Rebecca said thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Sam's question, Linda's question. So I think the important thing to realise about the Macquarie's Masters and its link to the research stream is that it's an exceptionally flexible pathway. We recognise the prior learning that you have as a professional by reducing the amount of time and the expense of engaging in the Masters of Education, Masters of Educational Leadership. Another thing we haven't spoken about too is that often people are a little bit hesitant about committing to a 1-year full-time or 2-year part-time type study. We also have, for those that want essentially a way out, is that you can exit the master's degrees with a graduate certificate or a graduate diploma. So for example, if you start and for whatever reason decide that you don't want to continue, and that's in the back of some people's mind, then you can withdraw from the program, use the credit that you've got plus the recognition of prior learning that you already have, and you can take a diploma or you can take a certificate. So with RPL, a certificate is 2 units. So if after studying 2 units, you don't want to continue with your studies, you can still get a qualification, a graduate certificate in education studies. So flexibility is key. You can come through our master's programs to our high degree research programs. You can come into our master's programs and withdraw into a certificate. You can use our master's programs. You can study full-time, you can study part-time, you can study on campus, you can study off campus, you can mix and match as much as you like. And the quality of learning and teaching is going to remain precisely the same.
That's why the one-on-one conversations are often good when we talk with you and you tell us what you have in mind. Like in your case, Linda, to do some work in Year 2 Science. Where do you see that heading? What are your goals and aspirations? Are you interested in doing research yourself? All those questions will help us advise you on the most appropriate pathway. Well, I think that's just about it, Greg, as far as the questions. Where you'll find a link to us if there are any further questions you have. First of all, we want to say thank you very much for joining us tonight. We couldn't have a webinar without you, and so we're very appreciative of the fact that you're able and had the interest to join us online. Our staff here at Macquarie are always interested in how we could further improve these webinars. So they've got a small and quick questionnaire and we'd really really appreciate you filling in that, taking a moment or two of your time. So from me, thank you very much. It's been a delight to hear your questions, and I trust we've been able to answer them for you, and I'll pass back to Greg to close.
And I hope we've answered most of your questions, but if you have other questions, you can always contact us. There is a couple of email addresses on the presentation that we gave. My name is Greg Robertson, so you can contact me on greg.robertson@nq.edu.au or any other email addresses. So we're always really happy to talk to you about how Macquarie can help you on your professional journey. And I thank you all for attending.
Good night.
Good night.